and yeah, it's just a small intimate group, isn't it? So
Yeah.
hi guys. Could you put in the chat what year groups you're in, just for our context? It'd be good to understand what year you're in. Civil service offers a range of apprenticeships. So Christina reached out to our department at work and said we would come and talk to you a bit about what offer there are for apprenticeships. So we thought we'd give you a little bit of talk about kind of who we are, what the civil service does, what a civil servant is, apprenticeships on offer, and then other routes in as well, and also how much you get paid, because that's probably of interest. And then there's some time for questions. So we'll probably go for like 20 minutes, so not too long. And then if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat as we go, or we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So hi, I'm Jacob. I work in the UK civil service, and I work in emerging tech policy. So thinking about future technologies like quantum and robotics. What do they matter to the UK? What are the opportunities of the UK to benefit our citizens, and what are the risks to maybe our national security, for example? Liana, could I hand over to you to say hello?
Hi, my name's Liana Hoppe. I work in BEIS as a commercial lead, and I started through in a commercial apprenticeship.
Do you want to say what commercial is? I'm never sure that makes sense to people
Oh,
outside of
right,
government.
yeah, sure. Sorry, I thought we were just doing intros first, but
Well,
yeah. So basically, I look after buying stuff from private companies that we need to run the business. So that could be um, media buying. I also buy security and systems for the finance team. Quite a lot of different things. But it's basically I just make sure that we have an agreement in place, and I find the private companies that have the best value for money, because it's our taxpayer money that's paying for it.
thanks, Liana. I'm sure.
Well, I think
You've gone blank for me. No worries. We'll come back to it, I'm sure. So briefly, yeah, the introductions. What is a civil servant? Who are we specifically? What have we been up to? Hopefully, make it a bit more real for you. Talk a bit about diversity in civil service, and then how you can get into civil service if it sounds something of interest. Basically, civil service work as part of the government. So, like, what is government? You'll see our Prime Minister Rishi Sunak on TV. He's supported by various other ministers, and you could see all the members of government shouting at each other across the aisle. Those are the people who are elected in elections, usually every 4 or 5 years, and they're the ones who are there to represent the public and make decisions on what's best for our country and the people in it. There's about 500 MPs, and a subset of those are in government. So who actually does all the doing? That's what we are, the civil servants. So we do all the kind of the research and advice for ministers to say, hey, this might be a good thing to do. You're interested in this. You want to have more ships. You want to have more trade with China. You want people to have this access to healthcare. How do you actually do that? And then once they've decided, we're the ones who actually go away and make it happen. So that's a kind of really broad breadth of opportunity in different types of roles. The important thing that I put there at the bottom is that we're not elected. So we just get employed like any other job. You apply for the job, you get the job, you do the job. Politicians are the ones who are elected, and they're the kind of the voice of the people. So we don't have a political view because we're not elected. So we just are there to advise ministers objectively and impartially, and then implement what they decide. Um, Interested in your thoughts in the chat. If which of these roles might sound like they're a civil servant. A good one to start is a spy. Does anyone know if James Bond is a civil servant or not? Over to you as well, Christina. No, I'll spoil it. James Bond is a spy. James Bond is a civil servant. We have spies, MI5, MI6, they're the civil servants. Beekeepers, there are also beekeepers as civil servants. Bomb disposal expert is not a civil servant. Bomb disposal experts are usually in the army or the police. We also have policy advisors. That's an absolutely classic civil servant job. That's what I do. And government ministers, they're definitely not civil servants. They're the ones who make the decisions because they're the elected people. There are lots of different types of job in the civil service. So Liana said she's in commercial, which I put here, procurement and negotiation. So buying stuff and negotiating and managing those contracts. We've got project delivery, so how do you actually make things happen, human resources, finance, economics. I think the interesting thing here is like if there's a job you're interested in generally, it generally exists in the civil service, and the civil service is a great place to get that training and experience in a really nice environment. There's no need to stay in government forever. It's a really good place to start your career. It's a really good place to come into your career once you've got experience elsewhere. So it's something to always think about throughout your different stages of your career. Who we are. Maybe if I start off, I'll go briefly first because I actually I didn't join as an apprentice, and then I hand over to Liana and Mashur, who did start as apprentices, to tell you a bit about their kind of career reflections. So I joined after university on the FAST stream, which is the kind of program for graduates and existing civil servants, where you do rotations around government. So I joined in the same profession as Liana in commercial. So I was at Ministry of Justice buying technology for the justice system. So everything from kind of like laptops for prison through to like the systems that the courts use to talk to the police. And then I went to Ministry of Defence and was buying laser quests for the army. Shoot at each other in war games, but not actually shoot each other. And then I went off to Department of Work and Pensions, doing some like restructuring of how we give pensions advice. And then I got to go to Parliament, and that was really interesting. And then went off on secondment to a private sector organisation who made planes and trains and bombs. That's a good thing about civil service, opportunity to go on secondment. And then I did 2 years as head of procurement and negotiation for a research and development funding body. So that was £200 million investing in how we do R&D and things like remote operation of salmon farms off the coast of Scotland, or factories of the future that are super automated in the Midlands, or high-speed F1 cars driving around streaming all their data back to HQ. So did that for a couple of years, and that was really good fun. And then I'd had enough of kind of doing the spending the money bit. I wanted to do the bit on kind of like how do you decide what you actually spend the money on, and then so came to here to do emerging technology. So like I said, what do things like quantum and robotics mean for the UK? What's the opportunities and what are the risks? I'll stop there. Liana, could I pass to you?
Yes. So I started as an apprentice, so that meant I didn't have a degree. It was actually, so I started the apprenticeship at age 21 or 22, I think. So I had taken a very different route before then, where I had actually studied musical theatre, but then I realised it wasn't for me kind of the lifestyle where in between auditions you'd have to work in a bar or a call centre. So it was just, I was trying to find something a bit more stable, I think. So that's the reason how I got to apply for the civil service. My mum actually saw an advert, I think, in the newspaper for I think there was an option for business, admin, cybersecurity, finance, and commercial. So when I applied, I actually didn't have a clue what commercial was, but it sounded the most interesting to me. Where I think they said like you could be buying a tank, you could be buying ambulances, and I was like, well, that sounds really cool. So I sent in my application, and I got on the course. It was I'll explain more about what that process was later, but my first role was in the Ministry of Justice, and I was a contract managing assistant for a private prison. So I did actually go into prisons and just make sure that basically the companies who were running them were doing what they were supposed to. So, and making sure that if they're spending money on beds, that the prisons actually do have new beds, or if there's certain foods in the canteen that they've got it. And that was really interesting at the time. I really enjoyed that job. And then I moved into digital education for prisons. So I looked after basically trying to, it's more to do with rehabilitation work for prisoners. So connecting them back to their families and giving them a way to interact. Say, for example, if they were a father and children, a way for them to read bedtime stories to each other. So I found that job also really rewarding. And then I was a EO when I started the apprenticeship, And oh, is there a question there? I just see a hand.
If it is, worth putting in the chat for now, because I think Christina has to unmute you separately.
Oh, okay. Right, okay, so I'll carry on. So I went for a promotion, and I worked at the Department for Transport, where I was a contract manager for Great Western Railway, which goes from oh, sorry, somebody was saying that they can't hear. Can you hear me okay, Jacob? Just wondering if...
I can hear you all right.
Can hear you everything we said. It might be a problem with your audio. It might be worth just looking at your audio settings to whoever asked that question.
Okay, I'll continue. So I was working on as a contract manager for Great Western Railway. So that goes from London to Wales, but also to Cornwall. And I think there was about 220 stations or around about that number at the time. And what my job was, making sure that this was another private company who was running it, that the money that we're giving them as the government on behalf of the people is being spent on things that they said they would spend on. So for example, lighting or new signs at train stations, or if they've put a project to reopen a new station, or if they're saying we are putting in new trains, building new trains, so stuff like that. So I was making sure that they were doing the day-to-day of what they said they would do, and I would approve stuff like I don't know, kind of random stuff like the Glastonbury car park there. They needed to redo it in time for the festival. So I had to go and just make sure that the plans that they had were making sense. So it was actually a bit of town planning as well. Like, for example, at Southampton, there's a big new transformation there happening. I think it was about 25 million. So it was just making sure that everything that they said that they were doing was worth it from a value for money point from us. As I always have to think, it's us as individuals and taxpayers. It's our money goes to this. So is it worth it, or is the money being wasted? And is there better things that they can do with the money that we give them? So that I worked on Great Western Railway. Then I moved to South Western Railway for a very short amount of time. Then the pandemic happened, and I was like, I think I want to do something else. So I moved to general procurement at Department for Transport, and I worked in roads, places, and environments, where what did I do? Oh yeah, I looked after driverless cars, which was extremely exciting thing to work on, where we were looking at what regulations are needed for the UK to bring driverless cars in. So for example, can you drive a car if it's driverless? Do you need a wheel? Do you need steering? Do you need brakes if no one's driving it? So it's all those kind of questions they were trying to work out. Then, sorry, I'll finish that. I moved again to DBEIS, which is where I'm currently at. And what do I do? I look after corporate services. So basically, I look after all of the things that run the business. So finance, communications, HR, estate, security. And at the moment, we're currently changing buildings and changing departments into 3 different departments. So it's quite a lot of work, but that's what I do. Sorry, that was quite long.
That's great. Thanks, Liana. I think that was maybe time for Michelle's internet to work itself out.
I hope so. I do hope so.
Oh, we were doing so well. Have we just lost him again?
Oh,
yeah, you're back now.
Sorry.
Ooh. It seemed pretty laggy. Not sure, sorry. Okay, I think we've lost him again. One thing I was going to say was what I like about the civil service, which I forgot to include. I don't know if Liana's got any thoughts, but I'll say mine, and if she agrees or disagrees, she can let you know. But for me, kind of the biggest thing that sold me and the reason I applied is you work on things that really matter to the people in the country and globally, and they're kind of the biggest and most complex issues. So if you like a challenge, that's why I joined. You can always find a job that you find relaxing and managing, but there's always the opportunity to do kind of the more difficult thing, or to do the thing that kind of impacts the thing you care about. Because government touches kind of every aspect of our life. If you're passionate about something, there's something you can do in there. There's so much opportunity to respond to crises. So like I was for 2 months going and sorting out, well, doing part of the energy bills response scheme. So the government's giving out billions of pounds to people and companies to reduce their energy bills so they don't go cold over Christmas, over winter. I was part of the team that had to set that up really, really quickly, and that was a lot of like hard, difficult work. But you knew it was making sure that people got the money off their bills so they could afford to keep their homes warm. I've had a colleague who, this was a while ago, but when the people thought the Greek banking sector was going to collapse, he got sent to Corfu with suitcases of money to sit in a hotel, and if anyone came with a British passport, he could give them 500 euros so they had enough money to get out of the country and get back to the UK. All these kind of like crazy jobs that just happen, responding to COVID, all the kind of wild things people have to do there. If there's something that's happening in the country that matters as a crisis, you can be the one who kind of gets in there and helps sort it out. And then the other thing is kind of the support and the flexibility. The work-life balance is really good. You can finish at a reasonable time. You can work flexi time. So if you work long one day, you can work shorter another day. I work 9 days in 10. So I work like, the work I need to do is like 8:30 to kind of 6, and I take every other Friday off because I do, my hours are slightly longer in those other 9 days. So I get every other Friday off. It's wonderful. There's a lot of variety in training, so we've both done so many different roles. If you're interested in something, you want to grow that part of you, people offer you training. They're very happy for you to move around. It's not like a company where they feel you're kind of like leaving and you don't care about the company. And then what was the other one I thought about recently? Oh, my friend, he's running he worked with me and worked in Ministry of Justice, and now he's out in Tanzania running a program that funds projects to use technology to improve education for local children, and he's being paid to do a master's whilst he's out there as well. So all these kind of like wild different varieties, work on things that matter, and you get supported through it. So those are the things that I really enjoy working about here. Liana, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that.
Oh, yeah, actually, it made me kind of reflect on the fact of some random things I also did. So in terms of emergencies, when we were preparing for Brexit, and it had just gone live, I think like we were worried about people coming in and out, so like the queues that would form at the borders and stuff like that. So my job was to look after the Eurotunnel and to see how they were getting on. So I think it's just something where there's so many opportunities to work on things that are really important to the country that maybe you would never think, oh, was that really a job? Like I used to work at McDonald's, and then next thing I'm working at like I run a train company, or I'm looking after prisons. Now I'm looking after a whole department. So there's so many different things, and there's a lot of opportunity to grow and make the kind of job that you want out of it. There's always jobs going in different areas, and I think it's just when you know and you get like kind of into your skill set of what you're good at, then you can with it.
That's fun. Thanks, Liana. Michelle, if you're online, feel free to jump in, but otherwise we'll crack on. Alan, if you want to put your question in the chat, we'll pick that up. Otherwise, we can come Q&A at the end. I worked, so a couple of in the chat say they can't see the screen, but I think we don't really need the slides. So the other thing, a couple of things I wanted to cover off were, I think it's important to say, like the civil service really cares about diversity and inclusion. I've worked at a few different places, and kind of, I mean, good to let Liana give her thoughts as well, but there is so much kind of structural stuff about kind of the support schemes, the specific schemes for development that are available to people from disadvantaged, less well represented groups, but then also kind of the people we work with. The culture is really, there is a really strong focus on how we build an inclusive environment, and how we both kind of recruit from a diverse range of people, but also retain and help the people advance. There's still a long way to go. Like our higher echelons are distinctly white and a lot of men, but it is something the organization cares about. I think that's really important. Routes into the civil service. So I will put up this slide because I think it's helpful to see, but we'll talk through it. and then we'll come to kind of we can talk about some specific apprenticeship schemes. So GCSE A level, there is the apprenticeship scheme. So that specifically is like any other apprenticeship where you do work, you do study, and you can earn a qualification of the appropriate level. So there are level 3 apprenticeships across things like actually I can bring them up. I can tell you what they are. There are level 3 apprenticeships in things such as business administration, team leadership, HR, operational delivery, and then there are a lot of level 4 ones. So ones more appropriate for post A level, all across all those different career paths we talked about. So finance and accounting, commercial, project delivery. So if there's something you're interested in, there's generally an apprenticeship route in. That said, if we go on to the far right of the slide, you can just apply anytime. There are jobs just listed on civil service jobs all the time. It's fantastic. You can say I'm interested in jobs at this pay grade, in this location, on if I care about it, and you'll just get an email each day to say these are the jobs that have been listed that match your criteria. If you're interested in applying, here's how you apply. And then also for any of you considering going to university, there are summer diversity internship programs. So either you can do a week or a full summer if you qualify. And then there's also the fast stream, which is the graduate route that I took. And then this one, the money slide. So this just sets out some of the kind of typical grade boundaries. I've used the ones from our department, but they do vary a bit across departments. But I basically put the minimum salary bands, and I'll look at the London ones because we're based in London. But there are jobs across the country if you're interested in moving. But administrative officer, so that's kind of administrative support junior role. That's often a kind of early entry point for school leavers age 16. In London, that's a starting salary of £25,900. Executive officer, that's a kind of maybe often an A-level point of entry. But that's doing a little bit more kind of management, a little bit more senior activity. That's starting salary of 28,500.
Can I just say as well that if you were to come in as an apprentice, it would either be at the grades of executive officer or higher executive officer, which is HEO. And when I started, it was executive officer.
Nice one. Thanks, Liana. Yeah, and higher executive officer, obviously a bit more management experience. Oh, sorry, responsibility. It does vary a lot across departments. So, for example, here I'm grade 7 and I manage one person. If I were grade 7 working in, say, job centre or prison, I might be managing 20, 100 people. So there's a lot of kind of variation in the different types of responsibility. And then you can go, like, as you go through your career, salaries obviously increase. Just for reference, so Liana and I are both grade 7s, and we've both been in the civil service for 7.5 years. That's probably kind of relatively standard for people who just joined at our age. You can go faster if you want to go faster in a specific area. You can take more time and go around, try different things if you want to do that. So it's really kind of very flexible. I think that's probably everything we wanted to cover. Hopefully give you kind of the basic information of what we always do, but I'll pass it to Liana.
Yeah, I was probably just going to say about like to join an apprenticeship. So for the one that I did, I had to do a written, basically a personal statement, but I didn't really have any job experience at the time, apart from, like I said, with McDonald's. So what the things that I wrote down were more about what, if I'd done any volunteering or projects that I'd done at school, where I was leading them. So what they're definitely looking for is people that are good at communication and aren't afraid to speak up and speak out and take ownership and pride in something. They also really value, I think, enthusiasm and to know that you're excited about doing the job. So after I did the written task, so I think there was like a small numerical task that wasn't too difficult, and I hadn't done any math since I was 16, so that was okay. And then I went to an assessment day, which was a full day, and there was five of us in our group, where we had to do a group task, and then we had like an individual interview, and we also had what else did we do? Yeah, a group task, individual interview, and a written task where we had to sort out like if you got loads of emails in, how would you sort them out and who would you respond to first, depending on their seniority. So it was a long day, but it was actually fine. And then I just got placed. I had put down which departments I wanted to work in, and then I got placed in the one that I wanted. So yeah, it was really good.
And luckily for me, it was the same one I was in.
Yeah.
Christine, I think that's everything we were going to cover. I don't know if Alan's sent me a direct message, which I've replied to, but if anyone else had any questions, or if you had any questions.
Thank you, guys. That was really excellent. I know someone did have their hand up, Alan. I'm just going to allow you to unmute if you wanted to ask anything.
Yeah, my question, I wrote it into the chat, but my question was answered. My question was if there was any options within finance for real estate or accounting. But yeah, I found out there was.
Yeah, I was just going to expand.
Definitely. No, you go, Jacob, you go.
I was going to say, yes, on the finance and accounting, the real estate bit isn't a specific profession as far as I'm aware, but we have the government property agency. So that's an agency who look after all our property. So if you are interested in real estate, you could apply for a role there, and within them, they'll have all those different roles of finance, project management, policy, etc. So there are options on both of those, yeah.
Thank you very much. Is there a link to apply for the civil service?
So I don't know if you like Leon's going to maybe look one up. There's the civil service jobs website. We'll follow up with an email as well. So when Christina shares around the recording of this, it'll have all the links in.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everything. Thank you for sharing your advice. Thank you.
All right, thanks for your time.
Well, I think actually there's a link now in the chat if anyone wants to copy that. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you giving up your time this evening. If there are no other questions, we will share, like Jacob has said, the slides and the recording. And then if you've got any questions, just you can get in contact with me, and I'm sure I can email Jacob or Leanna and get the answer. But
yeah,
if
anyone's thinking about applying and I was just saying, if anyone's thinking about applying and wants to talk through a specific role or how you apply or how to decide which route to apply, then happy to have a one-to-one chat or a follow-up chat with the group.
Yes, definitely.
That's great. So if there's no other questions, we'll let you guys go back to your evening. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thanks for your time, guys. Thanks, Liana.